Welcome to Xbox Uncut's episode 300. This week, joining me, I have Steph. Welcome to the show, Steph.
Yo, what up, what up?
Thank you for being here, sir. We are also joined by co-creator of the podcast, Jason. Welcome to the show, Jason.
What's up, guys?
All right.
Good to be back, at least for tonight.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week of news. It's been, we're also celebrating our 300th episode. So I'd like to thank everybody for tuning into our program. I know sometimes it's a day late, sometimes a dollar short, but we're here this week. It's a lot of fun. I'm excited to be here, especially since we're going into kind of next gen talk. Like, it's going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully we'll have some people dropping in, maybe Nintendad. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. I tried to get Eric, but sadly Eric's in New York, and with the COVID-19 stuff, like he's kind of having a freaky time with it up there. So we'll keep y'all
Did he come out and say
informed.
he's okay or not?
No, I was talking to him earlier today. He's just paranoid. Like, he was telling me, like, he's having a tough time with everything going on up there. So
That man's patient zero, bro. No,
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy up there. I mean, they're starting to put curfews up, all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, I think I listened to somebody say about they went outside and then like a tank on the street or some shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how I'd feel if I went outside to walk my dog and seen a tank.
Right. Yeah, it's sad stuff. Hopefully, I know last they said, I know this isn't a Corona podcast. Last they were saying it could last up to 45 days. It could reach its peak in about 30 or 45 days. And everything they're trying to do right now is just trying to slow the amount of people going into hospitals. So everyone just be safe. If you get sick, don't go to work. I know that's easier said than done, but just try to make the smart decision and buy more toilet paper.
Yeah, man, y'all understand, man. I wish I seeing people tear through toilet paper like it was gold blows my mind.
Right.
And the amount of water I've sold in a 2-week period blows
I know
my
your
mind.
back has to be hurt.
I don't understand.
Fall out the pallet?
I'll be honest. I don't
I'm
understand the
rolling
water
off of it
thing,
at this
sir.
point.
I don't understand the water thing.
You don't understand the water?
I don't get it. Because here's
Yeah,
the thing.
I don't
Like,
either. I
a
think they're gonna
hurricane
run out.
passes, power goes out, pumps turn off, you don't have water. Like, it makes sense. You need water. You got to buy water. Nobody's power is going out. Like, pumps aren't turning off. Your tap water will be fine. Like, you'll be able to still boil water or whatever you got to do.
Like cracking open a fresh bottle.
Like, this isn't a tornado. This isn't a hurricane. This is...
We just had a tornado here in Nashville.
Yeah.
And that's what's. And I mean, I don't live in Nashville. I live close, like 2 hours away. Like, all the stores donated a bunch of stuff to Nashville. So whenever this Corona stuff happened, then everybody started buying all the stuff we were donating to the tornado. So they were already low. Now it's like insane. So we got it worse than an average place just because of that tornado. Like, you got all the people surrounding donating, and then now everybody's just buying it for themselves. Now it's really very, very awkward. I will tell you that I had a funny experience today. This old lady got mad at me because I wouldn't high five her. I was walking past her. And she put her hand out for a high five, and I went to do it, and then I jerked my hand back super, super fast. And I want to get you sick, man. I'm sorry.
You almost got me. You almost fucking got me.
Yeah, she was offended that I wouldn't touch her. But we never shook hands before. Like, don't try to shake my hand when there's a fucking killer virus going around. You want to shake my hand? Touch me?
It's like, in a year, we can revisit this. But today?
I am sorry. I'm sorry, but I just thought that was hilarious
No.
because
I'm
I
talking
literally
about
was
what I
like,
would say to that lady. It's like in a year we could revisit
"Oh
this.
yeah. Oh
Like
well, shit. I mean,
today,
I
it's
might
not
be
the
straight,
day.
but if I gave it to her, she might
No,
not
yeah,
make it. You know
that's
what
what
I
I'm
mean?
saying. Yeah, it's like
When she goes shopping, she using one of them hover around things, man. Shit,
yeah,
I still got the buggy. I'm chilling.
Right.
You know what I mean?
yep,
You know, shit, you get this shit, you might not come back, baby.
Right.
yeah.
You a greeter up in this motherfucker. I mean, I'm here swinging. I just keep it
You ain't gonna
100.
be greeting no one if you get this shit. You know?
Yeah, she will. She be greeting the new attendants
No
in
shit.
heaven up there. The
We're
Lord.
joking, but
She
man,
gonna
if
do
you
the
are
Lord's
older,
work.
none of those people are listening to
That's
our
what I'm saying. Like
podcast.
yeah.
Stay the fuck away from this shit. Go home.
Yeah. Don't be going around shaking people's hands. Like that awkward thing is people who are actively shaking people's hands because they want to show that they're not afraid. Blows my mind. Like, don't try to
Yeah,
shake
I'm
my hand
saying like
now.
if I was 60, 65 and I was still working and I had all my 401k and everything situated, I would straight up take FMLA right now and pull for my fucking 401k.
They can't make you work at this
Oh,
point.
I know they can't, but well, actually, they can. I work for well, I can't say what I work for, but yeah, they can definitely make you work depending if you work for the right
Depends
person.
on what you do. But if you're, well, yeah, I mean, they're making us work. I told them that if they, because right now they're talking about closing. I don't. I'll wrap this up in like 2 minutes. I'm sorry, Dustin. But they're talking about closing school out for the rest of the
Hmm.
year, and then what your grades are, what your
Oh,
grades.
that's fucked up.
That's what they are. So my kids, yeah, so my kids may never go back to school until like the
Oof.
next year, and then like they'll go to the next grade or whatever. And I was like, look, if they're so worried about my kids not going to school and you sending me into damn all of these public places to work, like I love y'all. I love y'all here at Pepsi, but I mean,
That's a
Jim ain't
big
gonna
burden to
die
have
if he
your.
don't get his man. Exactly. Like he not
That's
gonna die if he don't get a Mountain Dew, bro. Like
right.
my son has asthma. I
Right.
got another kid that can't tell me if something's wrong with him. I mean, so that's just weird. I just wish I want a clear answer to what's going to happen when people start really getting sick because apparently, like we were talking about off air, this is even as worse as it can be. It can be worse.
Oh yeah, look at
It's not
Italy.
really hit that yet.
Italy
Yeah,
just had
well,
500 people
that's a
die
small
today.
island though. It's a little bit different for a small island, right? I mean, you would think, right?
Well,
I
Italy's
mean,
still
not island, but small. Well, it's kind of
country.
an island. It's kind of almost. It's surrounded by water on almost all sides. To say it that way,
But
it's a.
usually an
You could
island
drop.
has to be surrounded by water on all
I
sides,
know,
though.
but it feels like an island because there's so much water in it. Like it's kind of like
I
I
mean, if
forgot
we
what that place.
we could say Sicily, that would count.
Yeah. It's got a lot of water there, man. It's a lot of the way you travel. The way you travel there, man. It's weird.
Dusty probably wants us to shut the fuck up right
All right. Anyway, let's
now.
start. Let's start the podcast, man. I'm wilding. Let me stop.
I mean,
Dusty's just gone.
it's the big topic right now. I mean, it's
It is. I know.
Just be careful, guys. If you
When
got a
we talk about
respiratory
Italy, it
disease.
reminds me of Halo.
Oh, I'm sorry, Steph.
Reminds me of Halo 2. But it reminds me of Halo 2. You be in a group. You change the game type, and it says, "What's the shape of Italy?" And you ask somebody in your party, and they say boot, and then you kick the ass out. You ever done that shit?
Yes, I have.
That was great. That was great
Our
times.
go-to was playing Midtown Madness and asking people what type of peanut butter they liked. There's only one correct
Crunchy.
answer. You get to stay. You're a good man.
I
crunchy,
don't like peanut butter.
crunchy peanut butter is where it's at, though. If you're gonna have it,
I don't like peanut butter. It's disgusting.
all right?
Anyway, let's
You
start the
get kicked.
podcast.
all right.
Yeah, peanut butter's gross. It's a
Kick him out.
child.
Kick him
Guys,
out,
It's
just
Dusty.
throw it out there real quick.
it's
We do have news to talk about. Like, it's not
I
like it's a
yeah.
don't
Let's
know
focus
what
go.
you're
this
Let's go.
talking
week.
about.
Yeah. My bad. I'm sorry. I remember we didn't have no news to talk about like 2 weeks ago. I turned the whole podcast into like a 2-hour show. It's bullshit. And I'm sorry.
Yeah. Let's see how you are. PS5 versus Xbox Series X specs comparison, people. Yep, both of them got announced. It's been a week. It's been a week. Well, it's been 2 weeks
Yes.
since we last did the show. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's see. In this time frame, there's a bunch of little things. We'll just go through rapidly. E3 got canceled completely.
Yeah.
But to fill in during GDC's cancellation, both
I see
Microsoft
what
and
you did
Sony
there.
have, they've announced specs. So I take it everybody's seen the specs, correct?
Nope.
Yeah, I got them in front of me right now too.
All right, so we got the Xbox Series X weighing in at 8 cores at 3.8 gigahertz or 3.6 if you're using the multi-thread. Sony's also using a very similar setup at 3.5 gigahertz for its cores.
Let's do Sony separate because there's a lot of caveats with theirs.
I know it's all variable
Like, the
frequency.
Xbox one's more kind of up front, but let's wait on that because we have to get more in depth on the Sony stuff.
Okay, the GPU is 12 teraflops, 52 compute units at 1.825 gigahertz, custom RDNA 2 GPU. Memory 16 gigabyte of GDR6 with 320 bus. Memory bandwidth is 10 gigabyte at 580 gigabytes per second, or 10 gigabyte at 560 gigabytes per second, while the 6 gigabit of it is 336 gigabits a second. Internal storage is.
Why is it separate like that?
So
Okay, well,
wait, just wait. So how GDR6 works, period, is it works by getting its bandwidth by doing things in parallel. So it's all one RAM pool. It's not like a situation with like Xbox 360 or PS3 where there were two separate RAM pools. This is one large RAM pool, but you have let's say you have sets of 2, so they can be in parallel, right? But you have like 6 sets that are going to have 2 gigs on them, and then like another 10 sets that have 1 gig on them. So when it's storing information,
I'm just looking at the same exact memory bandwidth for Sony, and it doesn't say that. I'm just curious why the Xbox is.
The reason they did that.
No,
is because
I'm
the
trying to explain it
CPU
right now. So this is how GDR6 works, period. No matter if it's 16 at a 256 bus or a 320 bus. So because the chips are running in parallel, let's say you have just 2 chips, it's putting one on both, like one piece of information on both. But let's say you have them parallel all the way down, so it's always even. Microsoft has a couple of their chips that are going to be only 1 gigabit chips instead of 2 gigabit chips. So even though it's the same pool, it can't put everything into parallel. So some of the pool is going to have less chips to put it in parallel. So those back end chips are going to run slower because there's not as many chips paralleling that information. So let's say me and Jason were standing beside you, and I'm handing you an ice cream cone, but I have 2 ice cream cones in my hands, and Jason has 1 ice cream cone. Effectively, if we're just talking about main memory, like the 560, it's me and Jason handing you ice cream cones at the same time. But then I have an extra ice cream cone I can hand to you, but I can't do it so you're not getting it as fast because Jason only has 1 ice cream cone. So we're giving you 2 at the same time, but then I already have a third one that I'm going to hand it to you. So you don't get that exponential speed as if you would have somebody else. Like if Jason had 2 ice cream cones and I had 2 ice cream cones, you'd have 4 at a time. But because Jason only has 1 at a time and I have 2, you still get 2 at a time, but you're also getting a third one on top. But it's going to come at a slower pace.
Okay. Got it.
It also on the other side of it, the 10 gigabytes at 560 gigabit per second is only going to be for graphical use. And the 6 gigabyte,
it's preferred graphical use. It's all still the same pool though. So it's not like I said, it's not like the 360 or the PS3 where like this could only be for graphical use. Theoretically, if you would want, you could tell it, hey, put that on this is a CPU task, but put it on the faster part of the memory, And this part that we don't need, like audio sound, I don't need that at the super fast. I just, 330 is going to be way more than enough. You would stick it there.
Yeah, but theoretically, how they want to split it up in the way they explained it is that 10 gigabyte at 560 will be used for graphical,
Yeah, it's
what they
preferred
would
graphical.
prefer,
Yeah.
and then the 6 gigabyte, 3.5 gigabytes of that is going to be for CPU tasks and audio and miscellaneous, and that has to do with the game performance. And then 2.5 gigabyte will be reserved for the operating system. So it doesn't need to have that speed. The CPU doesn't
That's what
need
I have a question
560
on,
gigabytes,
man.
so it's not a bottleneck.
Yeah.
The only way it could
But
ever be
if
a
you wanted to
bottle.
use it, like either side of it, or however you want to put it, towards any system process, you can.
Yeah.
So, question after all of this is which one looks like they're going to be easier to develop for regarding like the memory
Let's do the
bandwidth? Is it
specs
going to be
first.
similar or
Well,
for
right
just
now,
regard
if
just
we were just
the memory
regardless, the
bandwidth?
Xbox looks like it's going to be easier to develop for because the Xbox has straightforward numbers. Like it's 3.6
Okay.
gigahertz, period. That's what it's set at. It's 12 teraflops, period. That's what it stays at. The PS5, on the other hand, has an asterisk beside like each one of its numbers.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, we can continue.
All right, we have a 1 terabyte custom NVMe. That runs at 2.4 gigabytes per second raw data or 4.8 gigabytes compressed with custom hardware decompression blocks. You can get these new expanded storage slots. They're 1 terabyte. They are like Microsoft and Seagate branded, that you'll be able just to slide into the back of that hole that we saw in the back of the Xbox Series X. And it's going to run just as fast as the internal drive. The good news is you'll still be able to hook up an external hard drive, like a 10 terabyte, and that's probably what I'm going to do. And then you could use that drive for like essentially cold storage, and that way you could take all your massive Series X games, put them on that drive, and when you want to play them, put them onto the main Series X drive, the internal, and that way you're not having to re-download everything constantly.
Or if you're really rich, you
Okay.
could buy a
I
bunch
haven't
of
heard anyone say that. That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah,
I
so
thought that only the other it was only used for like old games, but that
you
old
can
games
use
can
it
be
for old
played on the
games.
external.
Yeah, you can use it for old games. Of course, you're going to take a hit in speed, but you can use it just for cold storage.
that's a
Because
good
you
deal.
can't
Now
run
you
any Series X game off of it, but you can save the data onto it.
With how these expansion cards work, you can also buy multiple and have games pre-installed on them, and you could switch them out.
Yeah.
I don't know how well the port's going to hold up, but the fact that
It's
the
not
expansion
meant to
card is,
be flopped out a bunch. Like, it's meant to you
yeah,
pop it in and you're good for a while.
that's like, but it's also, this expansion card is also, it doesn't look like a regular NVMe. It's thick metal, so it basically has its own heat sink, so that it can dissipate the heat from the main board when it's plugged in. So there has definitely been thought put into it. As far as I'm interested to see what price they're going to be able to get this out at, because I'm thinking they're going to be able to get this thing out cheaper than the alternatives. We'll talk about the PS5 later, but I think they're going to be able to get this out cheaper than what you'd be able to get the market value NVMe cards that are going to be required on the PlayStation 5. But we'll talk about that when we get to there.
All right. Let's see. And then, of course, both systems will have 4K UHD optical drives. But yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a console. It's gonna be really powerful, and the Series X is gonna be more powerful than the PS5 at the end of the day. Like that's kind of how it's leaning.
Can we go over this one little tidbit? I keep hearing that the Xbox is going to be stronger, but the PlayStation is going to be faster. Is there any truth to that statement? And if there is,
This
where
There
is it?
is.
Where is it going to be
So the
faster, and how
IO
is it?
the IO throughput on the PS5 is 5.5 gigabytes raw, while the Xbox is only 2.4. The compressed is 8 to 9 gigabytes per second compressed, while the Xbox is only 4.8 gigabytes compressed data that it can run in and out real quickly. So hard drives, well, I don't want to call it that. SSD speed on the PS5 is fucking crazy. It's super fast. Like, don't get me wrong, the Series X is fast, and it's actually comparable with what you're getting in M2 SSDs now, but the PS5 is kind of using tech it's not even on the market yet. So when they were talking about expandable storage earlier, like during the presentation, they told people, "Hey, don't go and buy M2 drives because none of them will be supported. Because not only is the shape going to be weird, but the actual speed to any like the $200 M2 drive right now isn't fast enough to put into the PS5. So this storage is going to be super expensive." And it's not out yet. It's probably not going to be out for another year. Don't get me wrong. In like 30 years from now, you pick up an M2 drive, it's going to be more than enough. But today, or even at the end of this year, I don't see the person that's buying a $400 to $500 console dropping $300 on an extra terabyte of storage for it. Like, the price is going to be high. It's going to be expensive. And I don't expect the Series X internal storage, its expanded storage, to. I'm expecting that to be about $160 minimum, like for 1 terabyte.
The Xbox Series X, those little bitty cards, $160.
That's what I figure it's going to end up coming up to.
No way. I don't think it's going to be more.
I don't think it's going to be that expensive because it's actually.
Hey, I'd love to be proved wrong. I'm just saying what I think.
I think because the technology is so old.
No. It's not that. No, the tech that's going into the Series X isn't old. It's still an M2 drive.
Well, okay. When I say old, I mean it's what we're using today. It's stuff I can buy this stuff.
I'll put it this way: it's $200 to buy something equivalent to it today, if not more. Actually, it's more than that because the high-end cameras that have those like these same kind of cartridge drives are about $500. Like, these things aren't
There's no
cheap.
way they're going to be selling those little cards for.
No, I'm just saying.
How much was the hard drive?
I think it's going to be 160.
When you bought one separately. You remember how much those were when you bought a 360? You bought a hard drive?
$130, roughly.
I don't think it's going to be 160 because it's not exactly 2.4 gigabyte per second is not the highest. It's not on the higher end of the NVMe. The higher end of the NVMe cards, like a 970 Evo, is going to, or an Evo Plus, is going to get 3,400 to 4,000 gigabit per second. So the fact that it's 2,400 means that they might have been able to drive the price down a bit, and it's probably going to be about $120, $100. I don't see 160. I also think the reason they did the slower speed is they might be able to push down the price higher and get a larger amount quicker for the expansion cards.
I agree. I think it's the better choice. I'm just saying, in comparison, like PS5 storage, what it's going to be using that's going to be compatible, it can't, like, they're showing 5.5 gigabytes throughput for their RAW. For you to get a card that's supported, it needs to be 7 gigabits per second on its throughput. And that doesn't exist on the PC landscape, period. Not
another big thing about that is those cards that reach those kinds of speeds have, if you go look them up, they have really big heat sinks on them. They get super hot.
Yep.
They get really, really hot, and they use a lot of voltage. And should we go ahead and start because we're kind of just going around the CPU, GPU on the PS5 side.
All right, we'll go down the specs real quick. So the CPU, like I said earlier, is it's 8 Zen 2 cores at 3.5 gigahertz, but it's running at a variable frequency. So how Sony's marketing it is that they're going to be at 3.5 and they'll pull back depending on the situation, because the CPU and GPU are linked. So the GPU also runs at 2.28, and it's also a variable frequency. It has 36 compute units. So let's say the CPU is going like balls to the wall on the task. It will actually take away performance from the GPU and drop the teraflops. And this is why people are still saying, it's a 9 teraflop machine, 9.2, and it's being boosted up to 10.28. Because it's not a consistent frequency. While Microsoft's system is they're locked in at these frequencies. There is no like, oh, we're just going to move some of the energy there, some this way, and so it's going to make developing a game, especially fine tuning, harder for a developer versus just knowing that you have this blank amount of resources. Period.
Yeah, it's what Sony have done here is really deceptive, and it's funny because if Microsoft would have done this, people would have jumped their shit on Reset Era NeoGAF. Because essentially what Sony did is they said, okay, we can boost the CPU up to 3.5 and we can boost the GPU up to 2.23, but only theoretically at the same time. Theoretically, you can boost both to those frequencies at the same time, but in reality, not really. In reality, they're not the only things on the SoC that take up voltage. So the reason it's theoretical is if everything else on the SoC wasn't really using voltage, you could probably do it, but it's really not going to happen. The reality is, from what they're saying, is that like if you want to get to hit 2.23, you're going to have to draw power away from the CPU, and if you want to get to 3.5 on the CPU, you're going to have to take away power from the GPU, and there's really no way around it. And on top of that, even if you did get it to 2.23 on the GPU, it's also going to be restrained by thermals. So if you have it set there for too long and it starts to get hot, it's going to have to draw back again. And they said the clock rate, the percentage, 10% power. I think they were saying like a 10% drop in power is equal to only a couple of percentages in clock rate. But I'm gonna guess that this thing will probably drop to a base of like 9.2 teraflops, which would line up with the rumors. That's what I would guess. That'd be a 10% drop.
Yeah.
Now, what does the CPU drop to? God knows. I don't think it has probably as big of a drop. Probably like 3.2 or something. Maybe 3.
But the GPU, yeah, probably have a far greater drop.
Yeah.
All right, so we also have the 16 gigabit of GDR6, but it only runs at 448 gigabits per second. We have internal storage custom. That's the 825 gigabyte SSD. It's not a 1 tera. It's not like their whole. This doesn't include like the system part of that's going to be taken up. With how they're running it, though, I don't think it's going to be as big as people are making it out to be. I still expect probably about 750 gigs usable by the user, and they're going to, just because of how they're running games off of this new SSD technology, I don't think you need to have as much of a footprint for internal RAM storage because they're just treating the entire thing as that. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see exactly how much the system OS actually takes up on these SSDs on both platforms, to be honest, because both are taking the approach of using them, essentially the whole SSD as a form of RAM. So it's a different way of looking at memory on a console, and it's not something we have a PC equivalence to. So it's never really been done before. So we'll see how that plays out.
And on top of that, like as far as SSD goes, they're using a 6 partition method. I'm not 100% clear on it, but most SSDs used on the market today do not support this. They use a 2 partition method. So from what I'm gathered from Digital Foundry, even if they do get 7 gigabyte per second read through bandwidth, it's likely it's going to be slowed down because of these partitions, because it's going to have to add. Basically, the hardware on the SoC, the chipset, the custom chips they made, is going to add these partitions onto the ones that only support 2.
Yeah,
So
that's why they're saying that even though they only taken 5.5, that's for you to add an expansion, it would have to be 7 gigabyte per second because it's going to take a lot of tasks. Yeah.
And the thing that really sucks about that is I can see the 1X launching and going, hey, we have the expansion cards right now. And I can see the PS5 launching and going, you're pretty much stuck with 825 till we get someone to bring something out with it.
Yeah.
They might have someone launch, so But I get the feeling that if they do, since they're relying on a third party, I don't know if they're really like how big of a partnership they're going to have. But I get the feeling they're going to get sold out extremely quickly. So you got to be the lucky person to get it.
Yeah. So another cool thing is when you bring your favorite games to your Xbox Series X, simply connect your existing external hard drive to the Series X, and your entire library will instantly be accessible. So they are planning on you unplugging your old Xbox, putting this bitch in, and calling it a day. And it's just gonna work.
And now that we've
Right
gone
now on
over that, I guess
Sony's front, Sony is saying
Sorry.
that they tested the top 100 games and most of them work. So they're not guaranteeing complete compatibility yet. It's their goal, but it's gonna be they're gonna need time to like actually fix games to work better. And like they said, they're actually overperforming in these games, which are breaking the games, and that's something you would honestly, it makes sense for it to happen because these CPUs on both these consoles are so much more powerful than the Jaguar GPUs we were using. So yeah, like calculations could just get done a lot quicker, and then the game's not used to the information being ready, and it could just break the game because it's just how fast it's loading.
It's like Microsoft is the reason they're not having as much of an issue is because they started this emulation effort a while ago. And essentially, what the One Series X is doing is it's emulating the One X and it's emulating the 360 and the Xbox. And the PlayStation 5 is straight up using the reason they stuck with 36 CUs is so they could support the PS4. Like they had to do that in order to maintain support. Um, and I guess we could address what Steph was asking about which one would be easier to develop for now that we've gone over it. Steph, you still there?
I'm here. I'm listening to you.
The big problem with developing on the PlayStation 5 versus the Xbox Series X, like Dusty was saying, the developer knows exactly what they're going to get. They're going to get a 3.8 gigahertz GPU clock at all times, or they're going to get a 3.66 gigahertz CPU clock with multi-threading. I've actually heard the multi-threading version is actually faster than the 3.8 gigahertz, but it might be harder to develop for at first. So developers might tend to go with the 3.8 for the first games that come out. And then you're going to get 12 teraflops or 1.825 gigahertz on the GPU. On the PlayStation side, you got to be okay. How much CPU do I get at this moment? How much GPU do I get at this moment? Do I develop for the boost clock here? Do I have to worry about the thermals? Do I have to worry about the voltage uses? What about this other part of the SoC it seems like a real big
And
pain in the ass.
that's when he had mentioned that method or something that he created to develop the games. I'm curious if that's something that's going to be implemented in their software that they
Well, I'm sure
use
it
to
is.
code games or whatever. Yeah, so it may not be as hard as we think it is, but the really thing that I really want to know, and I'm sure we won't have this answer right now, but obviously is the SSD on the PS5 and SSD on the Xbox.
The
Obviously,
cost.
one's faster than and yeah, the cost is going to be crazy. But obviously, one's faster than the other. Is where will we see those differences? Besides, will it just be the game loading? Other than that,
Well,
because I have an SSD on my computer right
no,
now.
it won't just be the game loading. You're gonna see
What else?
the fact that it can access so much memory at one time means they can have a lot more on the screen at one time. As in, it's a lot easier. Let's say right now in games, when you see a bunch of different things on screen, they share a lot of the same textures, right? Because you're reusing it. You're reusing the textures because there's only so much you can pull from at once. With this, you can have a lot larger variety of textures. You can have a lot larger variety of geometry. You get a lot more larger variety of everything. So
Yeah.
you're able to pull all this information a lot quicker, and especially with open world games, you're able to have a much larger variety of everything basically.
So
Faster.
theoretically, Steph, what you could do
Theoretically.
is you could have a world where, and I'm gonna say this. Well, let's say because it's gonna be a first-party PlayStation game that does it, if any game does it. Let's say the game's 800 gigs, right? and it's filled with just tons and tons of
That'd
like
be almost the whole
assets.
hard drive.
Yeah, that's what I'm
PS4
saying. It could be the
or
entire
PS5.
hard drive. So it's 800 gigs of textures and all kinds of stuff. Let's say it's Fantasy Star Online, or not Fantasy Star, but what's that anime?
Sword Art Online.
Sword Art Online. Yeah, let's say it's Sword Art Online. It's the entirety of the game. It has all the assets, everything are there. So when you walk, or if you want to just click your fingers and something pops up, no matter where it's at on the SSD, it can it can run at 8 gigabytes per second, get you that information and bring it into in a second.
Think of it as the difference between like 8-bit and 16-bit color.
But
When they
I
had
do want to
8-bit
stress
colors-
this though, like, so you have like let's say 9 gig. I'm just gonna round up 9 gigabytes compressed data just streaming right into the RAM. RAM without a doubt is still running way faster. Like RAM's running like 500 gigabytes per second. So RAM can toss things in and out very, very, very quickly, way faster than the SSD. However, the SSD is finally coming to the point where it's like, oh, you're just doing that kind of information? Cool, we can just keep streaming on in assets because we don't need 500 gigabytes per second for textures. But I don't need to put them in RAM if the hard drive's fast enough just to send it to me when it needs to send it to me.
It's also
I just
the
know, like on the
reason-
PC side, like for instance, I know that if I put my game on the SSD, it loads faster and it has better frame rate.
Yes, and
It
one
does.
thing
It doesn't make the game. I can't go from high settings to ultra settings because of the SSD.
Yeah, but
And
you're missing.
That's what I'm getting.
Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Well, I'm saying you're missing. There's things you're missing. I think you're not noticing, and that's like stuff like texture pop in.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say.
But
like-
that doesn't
like-
necessarily mean that
Or
it's
no,
still
but, like-
going to be high setting.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
but it
okay,
could be-
let's think of it this way. Like,
if high settings for textures, like let's say your RAM wasn't big enough for, like, let's say you needed 80 gigs of RAM for this texture set, you could essentially they're just using the hard drive as RAM to just toss those textures in.
That's what the
Well-
SSD is RAM.
Yeah, it's just using the SSD as RAM. It's slow RAM, but we've gotten to the point where it's fast enough where it's actually really
Yeah, I
cool
understand
and
what
usable.
you're saying.
Yeah.
well,
yeah.
think of it this way. It's like, okay, I can draw so much from the hard drive at one time, and then I can store that in the RAM, and the RAM can super quickly push all this out to the screen. So, like a previous gen hard drive, it would go about a 5,200 megabit per second. So it'd take, a 30 seconds to load all this stuff into the RAM. And then once it loads, it
let me
pushes
just
it all
ask
out,
the question
right?
that I really want to hear. What I want to know is there still going to be a noticeable difference?
I'm
between
going to give
these
you
two
two
consoles?
scenarios real quick, and I want you to tell me how big of a noticeable difference this would be for you. PS4 has 16 gigabit of RAM, right? The hard drive can send
Yes.
8 gigabits per second. So it's going to take 2 seconds for that hard drive to fill up its RAM to get the game started. So let's say roughly the game starts in 3 seconds. At most on PS. They're aiming for like 1 second, but we're just saying, it takes 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Xbox shoots at 4 gigabits per second, meaning it'll be 4 seconds for it to load up the RAM. So let's say an extra second, it's 5 seconds. You are literally comparing 3 seconds to 5 seconds. That's the difference.
Okay, I'm talking about how the game looks, not how
That's
fast.
no.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
talking
that's
about
right,
no,
I
but I'm
was-
talking about loading up, sending the games in to look. Because if we're just talking about looks, that's GPU, CPU. Xbox is stronger. Period.
Well,
Yes, that's what I want to. That's what I'm
trying to explain to you. with it.
Exactly. I'm trying to, because there's people out there that are saying, well, this one's faster, so I mean, and it could make up for such and such with this SSD. But people
But there's
don't realize
diminishing
that.
returns to that. That's the issue.
Okay,
Like the faster we
that's
get
what we need to go
off
to.
that 16 gigs of RAM, the less you're going to get out of the super high speed SSD, because I hate to say, RAM's still fucking orders of magnitude faster than an SSD. Like, it's just way faster.
Well, you know how I was saying that the hard drive it has to load the RAM and it out, right? So the reason you have pop in like high res texture pop in games, like I know State of Decay is bad for it and stuff like that, is because at 50 to 100 megabytes per second, it's bringing the low res textures in and then it's pushing it out. And then it's like, oh, he's getting closer to that object. I better pull in the high res. And it takes a second or 2 seconds for it to get that and then push it back out. With this faster SSD now being used for games, instead of it going, oh, I need to hurry up. I got 2 seconds to pull this texture and push it out to stop the pop in. It can now just go bam, bam, bam. There's not. You're almost not even. You're probably the chances of us seeing as much. Like you're probably not even going to see pop in with this new generation, like texture pop in.
Yeah.
Like most of, unless like maybe in the far distance, but stuff like you remember how shitty Skyrim looked at a long draw distance? Like everything was like super low res. That's because there's only so much it could pull from the hard drive at a time and store in the RAM and push back out. Because it was limited by how fast it could pull from the hard drive. But now that it can pull a lot faster, they can make it much more detailed. You know that Xbox Series X video they had with the volcano and the field with skulls, and there was so much geometry and so many textures, and there was no pop in. That's because of the SSD and the RAM working with the SSD. That's the advantage you're going to see out of having the SSD, performance-wise, like game performance-wise. But for the most part, I think the most you're going to see on a third party is going to be capped at where the Xbox Series X is for the most part. I think you're going to see a little better performance out of the PlayStation if you even see a difference at all. But I think
when you say better performance, break that down.
As far as
it's going to have better frame
so
rate.
instead of it taking 1/100th of a second to pull this texture from the Series X, it takes 1/200th of a second for the PS4 to take it, or the PS5 to take it from the hard drive. Like it's
which translates to what on screen?
On screen he's talking about pop in, like that, for that texture.
So one's gonna have a little bit less.
That's if you even notice the difference at that kind of speed. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all I'm trying to get from you guys. So basically, what I'm getting at is, I don't think that this hard drive's it's not gonna make a huge difference in the long run.
And if you really, I'm sorry.
I mean, it's a really cool. I don't think it's gonna pull away from Microsoft's solution as much as some people are hoping. Because no matter what, even PCs aren't pushing these kind of the hard drives that fast. So you still have to pull along Steam as well, which, like, there's SSDs, but they're like 500 megabytes up and down. Like, they're just, they're nowhere near as fast.
Yeah,
and even those are not the standard, even on, like, for Steam gamers. So you're going to see, it's going to be a nice push, but you're like, Star Citizen is going to work very well on both Xbox and and PlayStation, PS5. But you're not going to see every game turn into Star Citizen. And games that aren't Star Citizen aren't going to see the benefits to, like, a PS5 hard drive situation as like Star Citizen.
Well, what I'm getting at is it's still good. It's still good that Microsoft went with the 12 teraflops and the 52 CUs.
I think,
whereas Sony chose to stay in the 36 CUs range and just boost their clock.
I think Microsoft,
and then
I'm sorry.
Up there. Go ahead.
I think Microsoft made the smarter decision to prioritize the CPU and GPU at consistent speeds rather than prioritize SSD, because they already have an SSD and they're already going to get 5 gigabyte per second. But the question is really how much, like, as far as the game itself, as far as the game looks, as far as pop in textures and how it loads, how much is a difference between the 5 gigabyte per second compressed to the 7 or 8 gigabyte compressed is really going to make. Especially when these devs are jumping from 500 to 100 megabit per second all the way to 5 gigabit per second. Like, there's got to be a development difference right there just to begin with. But are they like, how much of a difference is it really going to make? And as far as I can tell, I think the only real difference you're going to see is in how long it takes to load levels and load the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think like I think that there's going to be an instance where Microsoft's game, like the games, not first party. Let's talk about third party. I think that yeah, the PlayStation 5 games will be close to what Xbox will be able to do, but I still think just because it has more raw power, GPU, CPU wise, they'll be able to get a ultra where they'll be at a high, or you know what I mean, or
I'll put
custom
it this way:
high where
like
they'll be at a
performance-wise, I'd put the PS5 at like a 2060, and then the Series
2060.
X is like a 2080.
Yeah, man, with that hard drive, I mean, that thing's fast, man. I just don't think a hard drive's real. I mean, because like I said, I got an SSD, and I just don't see how a hard drive's gonna make you go from having medium settings to high settings.
No, it
I
doesn't
just
do that.
That's
It
what I'm
doesn't.
saying.
Yeah,
It
it's
It's
more
doesn't
still
do
a
about
that.
hard
texture
drive.
work, not
It's more,
not
yeah,
yeah.
it's more about making what you can already do with your GPU, CPU run better, smoother.
Yeah, it's more about textures and geometry and shit like
Yeah,
that.
it
Like
doesn't. It doesn't
But yeah,
it's
they
not.
exceed
do.
what you are.
I'll put it this way: they have a better hard drive on PlayStation 5.
Yes. Yes.
Xbox has a better everything else.
Yeah,
Like,
essentially.
excuse me. But yeah, like
Sorry, man.
the Series X, yeah, I mean it's way faster CPU. Well, not way faster CPU. CPUs are fairly close. Uh, we don't know like everything. If we knew how far the CPU on the PS5 would dip, we'd be able to say more. But I'm gonna just say they're fairly close. Well, the GPU on Xbox is just more powerful.
And one thing to add on to this is an interesting thing listening to the Digital Foundry's new video talking about the PS5 thing is that Sony didn't announce things that are unique and built into RDNA 2, which means that there is a possibility. I'm not saying it's true, but there is a possibility that what the PS5 has is not true RDNA 2, but it's RDNA 1 with RDNA 2 features.
Yeah, like
Doesn't
they
mean
didn't.
that's true,
Yeah, because they
but
didn't
stuff
mention
like,
at all like variable shading, which
yeah,
Microsoft
which
definitely
is
mentioned.
literally part of RDNA 2.
Yeah, which is what that does is like let's say you're looking out in the field, it doesn't render everything equally because it knows you're not seeing it equally. So you save a ton of resources by not like, hey, this thing is like an inch tall on a 60-inch screen. Like we don't need to render this in the fullest of detail.
And that could also save a lot of SSD performance and RAM performance too. So, like, there's going to be a lot of different, like, there's a lot of things when it comes to performance of games than than you think. There's a lot of different little features and stuff that change everything. Um, yeah, but this whole thing, it'll be interesting to see how these actually do with actual games. And on top of that, one thing we haven't talked about yet is the ray tracing. We haven't talked about how, as far as we can tell, the PlayStation 5 is going to be at a huge disadvantage ray tracing wise.
Yeah.
Because the way RDNA 2 works is that each CU has its own ray tracing portion of it. So the less CUs you have, the less ray tracing capacity you have. And with 44% less CUs, that's 44% less performance in ray tracing. Now, it does run at a higher clock on PlayStation 5 at boosted clock that it's not always going to sustain, so we don't know what the actual average clock's going to be. So the difference could be somewhere around, it could be like like let's say 0.4 gigahertz difference, or no, not even that, because it's 1.825 versus 2.23. So let's say a 0.3 gigahertz difference on average. You're still 44% CUs less. So the ray tracing difference could be gigantic. But that could be to the detriment of Xbox because having all this overhead for ray tracing could actually prevent developers from actually going on third-party games and trying to do more with it. beyond what the PlayStation's capable of. Like, you're not going to go and dev a bunch of reflection ray tracing if you can't play, you know.
Yeah.
But let's see. Beyond that, beyond the ray tracing, looking. You had the okay. Do you want to talk about the actual hardware, like the Series X hardware, like the way it was designed and all that?
I mean, it's a box. I mean, it's cool
Well,
that
I
it has
mean-
one cooling fan. It's definitely
Wait,
you
it's only
understand.
gonna have one fan in it?
Yeah, it has one fan.
Yeah, one large fan.
Shit.
It's gonna be
But I
whisper
like the
quiet.
split motherboard.
Yeah,
I like the split
motherboard's
motherboard
cool.
that's sitting on the aluminum block or chassis, however you want to say it. It's an aluminum block that separates two motherboards.
They wildin', bro.
So the SoC basically has its own, and then the South Bridge has its own motherboard.
How many fans in the PS Pro?
And the PS4 Pro, I don't know.
It doesn't have a fan. It just has a
That's-
jet engine.
I say that because that shit get hot and it's loud. When I'm
Yeah.
playing games, my woman be like, "What the fuck is that?" And I be like, "It's just PlayStation.
Right.
This shit is loud."
Well,
So one fan in a PlayStation doesn't sound right to me.
well, I mean, it's honestly the
We don't know
audio-
what the
depends on how
PlayStation's
shaped
gonna
it
look
is.
like. Honestly, we have no
It
clue.
depends on how it's shaped. But
Yeah.
I'm saying, man, I mean,
The sound is based off of how fast a fan is moving.
Yeah.
So a larger fan moving
I know.
slower is quieter.
Yeah, and
So
it moves
if the
more
Xbox-
air.
we'll see.
From what we heard from Digital Foundry that went and
Yeah, but
played on it, they
it's
said
already
quiet.
overclocked though. It's already overclocked.
Oh yeah, that thing's
It
gonna be
comes
loud.
out the box. It's overclocked. That's what I'm saying. It comes out the box overclocked. They talking about it's gonna have one fan in that bitch.
And it's gonna be thermal.
Oh no, we're saying Xbox is one fan. We don't know what PlayStation has.
Oh,
no
okay.
clue.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking. About
Yeah, we have no
PlayStation.
idea what PlayStation
why.
has.
Oh, okay. You said didn't we already know that about the Xbox though? I already seen.
Yeah,
the
we've seen the
pictures.
pictures, but we didn't see the internal. We didn't know if there was a fan on the
Oh, okay.
bottom internally.
Well,
or-
I could have sworn when they first showed it last year, they showed like it kind of like I don't know, like assembled like in the picture.
we didn't
Like,
see the
get
split
like
motherboard. We didn't really. I think we kind of saw
I mean, it just
vapor chamber.
it doesn't like show exactly, but you see the one fan and like how they show it, like basically how they designed it, the air to pull out the top or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think we should talk about how impressive the fucking Gears of War thing was. They got that shit. I think they said.
So they
didn't
put it
get
on Pizza
4K Ultra at over
Yeah.
100 frames per.
Yeah, it's running 4K Ultra over PC specs. It's beyond
At 100
Ultra.
frames per second.
Yeah.
That's fucking impressive as hell for a last gen game. Not even built for the hardware.
Yeah.
Technically emulated. Technically, not really, but technically. And it's running at 100 frames per second. That's fucking crazy. Let's see. And then you have the quick resume stuff where you can have 5 different games. We've already known about that, really.
That would look pretty cool though.
Yeah. It was nice to see it in action. Let's see. I really don't want to get into the audio stuff 5 and all that because it was super boring. But I get if you're into it because it's supposed to be. They basically took a CU, RENA2 CU, and they turned it into an audio block, so you can have like 100 different audio sources at a time. But the Xbox already had 3D audio. I really don't know how they compare. The Xbox might actually be doing the same damn thing. I don't think they even really talked about the audio chip in the Series X. Let's see. Was there anything really else pretty big from this event?
Not that I can pull out of my ass right now. I don't think so. I mean,
I was disappointed that they didn't show anything running on the PS5. Not a emulated game running at a boost. not a like a Minecraft kind of game with enhancements or ray tracing.
I want to
They
see the controller.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I didn't like I've already seen the excuse where people were saying, "Well, it was meant for developers." Yeah, but this was the first time they've really talked about the specs to the public. Even if it was meant for developers, this is a first impression, and it was really boring. Like if you
Well,
watched
the
it,
the
it was
biggest issue
super
with what
boring.
Sony did, and I know we're an Xbox podcast. I don't want to talk about Sony nonstop, but the biggest issue is they went on the fucking PlayStation YouTube page and said, "Hey everybody, Mark Cerny's going to
Right.
give you a fucking preview of the road to PS5. Tune in tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific." So they went after their core like video game audience. You
Right.
don't put it up on that page. Like, I'm not saying you don't let that information out or you don't fucking broadcast it, but you don't sit there and fucking hype up the fans for it because you got exactly what you did. People going, "What the fuck is this? Like, this is weird."
At the very least, they could have done what Microsoft did and release a really nice like, okay, we let journalists fuck with this, like Digital Foundry, and here's them giving their first impressions and shit like that. Not
They didn't
like
do that.
no,
What was the stuff with the? What was the first thing you see from them? Forgot. Wired. Was it Wired.com?
yeah, but they didn't no, like you haven't had the same treatment with the like we haven't seen like any like press go like, oh, we went out to Sony and here's video of the console and games we played on it and here are the specs and here are what we think about them. We didn't get any of that.
Mm, okay.
All we got
I
was
see your
Mark
point.
Cerny looking like he was about to be a serial killer.
I don't understand. I don't understand why people are expecting him to be like any different than he was the
No,
last
he's gonna
time
be the same, but
that he talked. He's very. I mean, he's a smart guy, but he's not made for fucking speaking in front of a bunch of
no.
people.
And
Well, I don't think it's even that. I think what they should have done with him is been like, "Hey, sit down. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. And I just want to have a conversation with you." That's it. Nothing else. Like, just have a basic fucking conversation.
right. I I think the reason we're talking about PlayStation side was straightforward and we got it. It was really transparent and we got everything like with little confusion and we got gameplay demos and all this. But on the PlayStation side, it was kind of a mess and it's more interesting to talk about because of that. And it's
Yeah,
not
I
as
agree.
consistent and like having their variable refresh rate and like seeing all the damage control and even on the Sony side during their event. Like it's a
This is the
more interesting
exact
thing to
opposite of
talk
the
about.
PS. Yeah, I mean, this is the exact opposite of the PS4 reveal. You remember
Yeah.
it came out in February. They were like talking right to developers. They showed a couple games. Then they came back out again and they showed the console. I mean, it's it's not it's weird. It's weird that they're choosing to hold back so
Right.
much. I mean, they haven't announced what they're doing. Not, I know they're not going to E3. There is no E3, but they haven't announced if they're going to have like, Microsoft mentioned they're having a digital event. They haven't said whether or not they're going to do
I think
anything.
they held back
Like,
because they're still working on the console, as far as like cooling
well,
and stuff.
there was a rumor that this was supposed to launch last year.
Yeah. I think they're also holding back because they wanted to make I think they've held back for so long because they wanted to get the final number of boost clocks. Because they wanted us to give us the highest number they could get with a boost, you know. And
Yeah.
I'm also wondering how reliable this thing's going to be running at 2.23 gigahertz for so long. But, it all depends on their cooling solution.
All right. Well, what can we move on now? Is there anything else in the news that's relevant other than the specs?
Corona.
Yeah.
We talked about the coronavirus.
Bill Gates
You wanna
stepped.
talk?
Bill Gates
Oh,
stepped
go
down
ahead.
from the Microsoft board. That was big news. So he's no longer working with the company. I mean, I'm sure if he has something to say
He's
or
gonna retire.
people will fucking listen, but it's it's kind of the last big thing he was attached to at Microsoft.
I don't know if they'll listen, Dustin. He tried to warn us about Corona. Did you
It's
watch
true.
the TED Talk?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean that was one big thing. What else did happen? THQ Nordic had a funny post where they posted I think it was the funeral for Oliver Queen with what is it? The Flash leaning down, making the peace sign. And they put THQ Nordic on the Flash, and then E3 announcements on Oliver Queen's grave. That was their talk about the cancellation. That was kind of funny.
You had the Xbox One X on sale for $200. That was fucking
Yeah, it's
crazy.
still like going all over the place. You can get it for like $200 depending on where you're at.
That's fucking crazy.
Where's this on sale
good.
at?
Like they had them at Costco, I think, and then there was other places. They were just popping up. Like Microsoft.com had them on sale for $200.
God, that's an insane value.
Could you go get it from the Microsoft store?
I guess.
Shit, I would try. I'm gonna trade my sons in for one.
No shit.
He got an S. I don't know what that'd give me for the S, but if they give me $100,
Yeah,
I'll upgrade them. This little bitch ass.
it's a good system. Yeah.
Hell yeah,
Talking about-
$200, man.
I want-
Damn.
I want better graphics. You seen the PlayStation Pro playing on the 4K TV
Right.
in the living room. It was like, I kind of want to play on this because it looks better. I was like, yeah, because you play on that trash ass S on your 720p TV. You don't know what real graphics is, motherfucker.
We have.
I was gonna say the Xbox Series X controller. Not much different from that. It's got a share button.
Yeah, those triggers look pretty sweet.
Yeah, and then the D-pad is now more like the disc D-pad from the Elite series, which I like because the disc D-pad's really good. It's all I use on it anymore, actually.
Part of me feels like they're never going to get the D-pad right on the Xbox controller.
They did. It's the disc one. I'm gonna be honest. That really is the best D-pad.
I switch them. I switch in between them both because neither one of them are equally as good.
Yeah.
As I don't even think the PlayStation one's that good, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not.
Let me look at it. Actually, you know what? I like the PS4 one. I just don't like the placement of it. It's a terrible place.
Yeah.
That's what's wrong with it. It's better, but it's too big and it's in the wrong spot. So I don't know. I don't think they'll ever get it right. I think the way the controller's designed, is just not made to have a good D-pad. I mean, I won't say good, not to have a great D-pad.
They just need to copy I'm sorry. They just need to copy the form of the Xbox controller.
Sony?
Yeah, like the shape of it.
No, they won't. They won't do it.
The PS4 controller is based off the 360 controller.
It is, but it's still what is it, asymmetrical or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thumbsticks are in that weird spot to where, I mean, I have very, very big hands and my thumbs hit each other. Seeing my thumbs hang off the joysticks while I'm playing the game just makes me look down. I don't know why. It bothers me.
I love that Reset Era has. They have a thread right now saying it's called "Mark Cerny is a masterful orator," and the fact that this is serious is fucking hilarious. Because anyone that actually watched that show, that conference, like, we're ready just to fucking turn that shit off because of the way he was talking. He talks like a fucking serial killer. I mean, he really does.
All right, Cyberpunk, or well, I should say CD Projekt Red, once Cyberpunk releases, they are splitting into 3 teams. Team 1 will be doing add-on content for Cyberpunk 2077. Team 2 will be multiplayer for Cyberpunk 2077, planned for 2022. And Team 3 will be part of the new system, a new single-player RPG, 4-year dev time implied to be in the Witcher universe. I'm not shocked it's going to be in The Witcher since they just settled all those licensing agreements with the author. So kind of like it's more of a no shit kind of thing. But yeah, I'm definitely
ready.
pumped for more Witcher. And with these new hard drives and how these systems are going to run, Witcher 4, oh my god. It's going to be fucking intense.
You beat The Witcher 3, right?
Yeah.
You beat the game, correct, Dustin?
Yeah, I beat it. Yeah, it's fucking great. There's still some content I need to finish, the DLC, but other than that, yeah, I beat it.
I haven't done Blood and Wine yet. I thought I bought it, but I went to go play it, and I didn't buy it, but I need to get it. Question: is there an ending where he dies or something? Because he didn't die in my game.
No, he does not die. He retires, essentially.
He didn't retire in my game either. I don't think he did.
Well, it's part of the
Alright, I
DLC
need to
is
get
he
that.
goes to like a vineyard and retire, like he's just retired.
Oh, Blood and Wine?
Yeah.
That makes sense. And that. Okay. Alright. That motherfucker can't retire. He can't retire, man. Fuck out of here. He ain't retired. He never retired, man.
Gotta fence this fight, bro.
Fuck out of
You
here.
gotta go all Master
Wow.
Chief on this shit.
Yeah, fuck you talking about? Get your ass
We
out
need
there
to
and kill
run.
monsters.
No, we need to get ready to fight.
Well, I'm tired of having a game and then all of a sudden I'm a woman.
Right.
I mean, I want to be a big grizzly man. I want to be
Right.
want to have no titties. You know what I mean? You
This
feel
show
me?
brought to you by feminism.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Shout out to the ladies out there. But yeah, man. When when I'm a man, I want to be a man. You know what I mean?
No, I get what you're saying.
I don't want to switch it up all the time. I don't want every game to be you were a man, but now you're a woman.
Right.
You're a woman now. All right, okay. Let's move on. Can we? Are we going to what you've been playing?
We're just going
Or is
into
there some more
women
news?
hating. I think that's the goal.
Okay.
Oh no, I love women.
Uh-huh.
I love women.
I heard nothing but love for women this whole podcast so far.
Yeah, I love
How
women's.
dare you have a preference to the character you play as in a video game?
All right, I'm
I'm
going to hit
just
on
saying
some
that
other
if I
stuff
was
real
a
quick.
man-
Just
You should.
Oh, go ahead.
why don't we just talk about the coronavirus again? That's all I'm saying.
Can you tell us about your vacation?
We'll
haven't
go
told
over
me
that
about
in a
it. I
little
want to hear about it.
There's a lot of
Okay.
corona.
bit. Yeah, a lot of corona. I wanted to cover, so there's still going to be AA batteries inside the Series X controller. That is
Is that confirmed?
Yeah.
Yep, that's confirmed.
Oh, man.
And somebody brought up a great
Come
point
on,
about it.
Xbox.
In like 10, 15 years, like when these, or let's say 30 years, when you're trying to play these games or game systems, at least on Xbox, you're not going to be looking for a stupid fucking battery pack that hopefully will
Battery
work in your
replacement?
PlayStation 4 controller / PlayStation 5 controller. While Xbox, you could just pop in a couple AA's. They're not going nowhere.
That's I don't give a fuck about 10 years from now, man. I want it now, man.
Okay,
I mean,
then put a
does
battery
the
pack in
battery
the
in the
bitch.
PlayStation control. That's cool.
And you can
That's great,
literally
and I
just
do
use
that.
it.
But
Yeah.
I think that if they just made it like the Xbox Elite controller, and it would be better. It would just be better because I've got a Switch controller. I got a Wii U controller where you have internal battery, and they work amazing. And Sony just doesn't know how to make it, or doesn't use a good battery in their controller.
I disagree.
I mean, look
I
at
just
those
think what
two.
Microsoft should do is pack in a fucking a battery pack with every controller.
Okay, that'd be fine too.
But I still
just put-
want
just-
the
just-
slots for putting AA's in. Like I want both.
I mean, that's fine, man. But damn, come on. I'm still buying batteries now. You think I'm gonna buy my
Buy
son
some
a $200
Interloops.
charge kit?
Buy some
Think them
Interloops.
motherfuckers
Sir.
getting that? Nah, man, fuck that.
Interloops. My whole house is on antelopes now. I completely got rid of batteries. Any disposable.
I got one for myself, but kids ain't getting batteries. Fuck them.
Yeah, but you're paying every time you buy a battery pack. You would have just bought a fucking rechargeable
Yeah,
battery.
but they break everything, man.
Yeah,
They break everything, Dustin. They will find a way to break some shit.
So they're gonna break that
They will
PlayStation
find a
controller
way to
or
break
the Xbox
Yeah,
controller. Then you'd be
they
changing the whole thing, sir.
No, they only break the expensive good stuff. They broke
Oh,
the
okay.
Switch controllers. So I
Yeah,
gotta
those
spend
fuckers
$80.
are. Yeah, they're pricey. Nothing to
And my
scoff
son
at.
was like, "Well, I want to Switch Lite." I'm like, "So you can break the controllers on that shit, and then we have to buy a whole new Switch? Fuck out of here!" No, no, sir. I'm a horrible parent.
We ain't
Alright,
saying nothing.
any
All right,
like that?
there was like a moment. I don't know why this blew up today. That there was a weird picture that came up on Xbox.com about the Series X releasing on Thanksgiving. If you went to the India page in English, like it was really fucking weird, and it was clearly just like a bullshit tape or like asset somebody made. And they've already come out and said, yeah, it's just not coming out Thanksgiving. So that was the only other like kind of big thing that came out of that. I'm trying to see if there's any other things I want to cover. Nah, I think that covers it. We kind of hit up the big topics that people are going to care about.
We did.
All right. Yeah, so I went to the Bahamas. It was a very fun trip. It was beautiful out there. Nice, wonderful people. Carnival was amazing. I did end up getting sick because I came back to a house full of sick people, and it blew. It sucks. But hopefully, I'm not blaming Carnival at all. Like there was hand sanitizer stations everywhere, stuff like that. They did everything they could possibly do to keep people healthy. But yeah, I ended up with some kind of flu or something. I don't know. But that's been a battle by itself, because once you go out of the country and you come back, and then you try to go to the doctor and you're like, yeah, I got a cough and, I'm short of breath. And they're like, oh, it's coronavirus. I'm like, I don't know about that. But so I got sent to the ER and quarantined for a couple days. So I'm still waiting for my test results. But at this point, I just want to get back to work. I'm kind of done playing video games and hanging out. Like I want to work, Like there's something satisfying.
How many days it's been?
I've been off. Well, I worked on Saturday last week. Last Saturday I worked, and then I worked about 20 minutes on Sunday, and then I left. But the week, I was off the week before that, and I was off, ever since then. So I don't know. I like to be busy and like laying around in bed, because honestly, my head's been spinning. And trying to play video games is just, the last couple days was almost an impossible task. I just couldn't do it.
I'm sorry, bro. I hope it comes back negative. You're all good, and you just got some sort of some shit, some crud. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Me too. All right. But that's what I've been up to. Jason, you haven't been on the podcast in forever. What have you been up to, sir?
Work. Playing random shit like Ark and Space Engineers.
I heard you built a new PC.
Yes, I did build a new PC. With an RTX 2070 Super, an i5 9600K, 32 gigabyte of DDR4 RAM. Has an all-in-one NZXT radiator cooler. I bought an NZXT H510 Elite case, which is full of RGB and tempered glass, and it's an NVMe 970 Evo boot drive. So it's really snappy, runs really well, runs all my games really quickly. Now I pretty much can play everything at ultra at about 60 frames per second or higher, minimum at 4K. So I'm pretty happy with it. And it's very quiet too. I have it sitting like right next to me right now, and you can't hear it at all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Steph, how have you been, sir? What have you been up to?
Man, I've been watching. Is this the time where I can tell you what I've been watching?
Yeah,
Because that's what I've been doing. Well, I've been quarantining and chilling with my family because my kids been out of school. But also, I watched a great show called "I'm Not Okay with This" on Netflix, and it's got the chick from the kid, the girl. I can't remember what the fuck her name is in it, but she's the only girl in the Losers Club. The kid, she's the main character in the show. Also, one of the boys, he's another character in the show, and they're like teenagers, and it's really weird seeing them together, being older. But it's a good show. It's really good. It's based off a comic that I've never heard of before, but she's got superpowers. That's literally in the first 5 seconds of it, so it's not no spoilers there, but it's really good. You should watch it. 20-minute episodes. There's like 10 episodes, so not a lot to watch, and they all flow together, so it feels like you're watching a movie, like a really long movie when you're watching it. So, but man, that's really all I've been up to, man. Ready for some football. Ready for some sports. No,
Yeah.
there's no sports right now. It sucks. But that's really all I've been up to.
Yeah, I turned on wrestling less the other day because,
Yeah,
of course, the promotions are everywhere for 316 for Stone Cold Steve Austin to come back for a night or whatever. And it was funny. I looked up because I didn't actually watch on TV. I looked up the YouTube clip, and it's just him standing in a fucking empty stadium, and it's just like, I get that y'all kind of have a show, but like the fans in the stands kind of make wrestling shows. It's really weird just to see dudes in an empty stadium just like slamming each other around. Like it's about the crowd, Like it makes such a difference. It's not the same. Well, like don't get me wrong, I get that there's, I know it's all fake, but at the same time it's, there's some real part to it. But it's based off the fans' reactions. And when you don't have them, it loses a lot. Well, something like basketball, I can see watching two teams play because it's a technical sport, Like you're actually watching the players do their like some amazing things. Like wrestling's more about like everybody going, "Oh my god, it's crazy." Welcome to the show, Dad. Nintendad, Super Nintendad.
Oh, hi. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to show 300. How are you doing, sir?
Wonderful. How's it going?
It's going, It's going.
It depends. Are you a PlayStation guy or an Xbox guy?
A PlayStation guy or an Xbox guy?
Yeah.
Well, the Switch. Switch it up, okay? We gotta switch it up. We gotta switch up what we're doing. We gotta watch wrestling with no one in the audience. It's very awkward.
It is.
Just
when
two
Austin's like,
guys
"Give me a hell
hugging,
yeah,"
hugging
then
each other.
there's
Give me a hell yeah.
There's nobody there.
It reminds me of our podcast.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That shit was so funny.
Our podcast is like having Corona all year round.
Disrespect the podcast like that.
Yeah, you're creating a micro memory. Now you need to say something nice about the podcast.
Yeah.
I don't have to edit it anymore.
What are you talking about? This is Xbox Uncut. We don't edit.
Oh, right, that's right. Never mind. Forget I said that.
Lies and slander, sir.
Well, we don't cut any footage, but we do. We try to make it sound better. Kind of counts. Oh, I'm just sitting here reading Gaff and Reset Era, watching the meltdown. It's pretty funny.
Is it an actual meltdown on Gaff right now? Is it? What is
On
it?
Reset Era, there is.
Because of what happens when you're like a supposed insider and you say something's going to be this and it's like the exact opposite of what you said.
You get quiet for
Do you,
about
like,
2
get
months, and then you come
get
back
banned?
out. No.
You're supposed to get banned on GAF anyway.
Isn't Reset Era like the new GAF?
Yes.
Yeah.
Except it's a lot worse, kind of.
Get out like it's business emails and shit.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how you can get away with being all fake on the internet.
It's like GAF, but less sexual harassment.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Weird.
Well, moving on
Was
to
there
the
any
stupid
sexual
websites.
Tell me the story.
No, it's about the guy that owned NeoGAF.
Yeah. All right.
He got in trouble.
We're not
for
going down that
sexually
path.
harassing
No,
someone.
All right.
I know this. I know the story. I just knew you talk about it.
Dad, what have you been up to, sir? How have you been, sir?
What have I been up to? A lot of Netflix, a lot of games at home, going for walks.
That's good.
I
What you been watching
what have
on
I?
Netflix?
His neighbor.
Oh. Yeah, I've been watching my neighbor through the window.
Okay.
And then what? So my neighbor's been watching.
You still using that spotlight to see through their window?
Yeah, I mean it's the best way to do it.
That's obvious, you know.
What did I watch? Hold on, now I gotta.
She can't file charges if you let her know you're watching.
Yeah, on Hulu, I've been slowly catching up on My Hero Academia,
My guy.
and then I watched a little bit of the 100 Humans. Didn't like it. I saw that Dragon Quest Your Story, which is like a retelling of Dragon Quest V. I'm not a fan of that. It was okay, but and then I saw a bunch of people over the weekend talking about this. I think it's like Beast Stars or something.
Haven't
Yeah.
I
heard
have
of
no
that.
idea. It's some sort of anime with like, but apparently if you like the show, you like furries. So I checked that out.
Okay.
It's all right, I guess. I don't know. It just seems like every other anime out there. But then I've been watching McMillions, The Americans, and yeah, I have the Regal Unlimited, Movies Unlimited, which is not doing me any good right now. So I've been missing out on my movies and just playing more games. I played over the weekend. I played some more of the Bleeding Edge demo or beta rather. It definitely it feels a lot like Overwatch did at the start. I like the characters, and it seems like a game that you could do better if you're working as a team and actually talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I played with 4 people, and it was a lot of fun. 4 or 5 people. I had a group up, and yeah, it's. I have a friend my friend James isn't a huge gamer, but like it's all he talks about now. He's like, so when is Bleeding Edge coming out? When are we gonna play? When are we gonna do this? So he got kind of the itch for it. So I know I'll definitely be playing more of it.
Oh yeah, and Spawn just came out, Mortal Kombat 11. So I checked out Spawn. He's got really nice cape animations. Like just the way his cape moves, like organically, it just looks really good. I guess that's what I've been up to. Pretty much.
Yeah, I haven't played anything the last like 2 weeks. I mean,
Seriously?
I played a couple minutes of Sea of Thieves. I was streaming. What was it? State of Decay Juggernaut Edition for a couple minutes during this, but honestly, yeah, I haven't really played anything. Really. You know what? I take that back. I did play like 7 hours of Ori, The Will and the Wisp. That game's
I didn't
fantastic.
really play anything, but I played 7 hours of it.
It's been like 2 weeks, dude, so fuck off. But yeah, that game is fucking addicting. And yeah, it's very beautiful. Love the soundtrack. It's still the best soundtrack, probably this generation. Like those games.
Yeah, it's really
But
good.
that's it.
It's
That's
really
all I've done. Steph, what did you play this week, sir?
Hop back on a little bit more Detroit. You know what I mean? I'm going through that game, trying to finish it off. Still pretty good. Still a lot of choices to make. Am I gonna be the man who brings down the robot revolution, or I'm gonna be the spark that starts it? Man, I don't know yet, man. I want to be good. I always want to be good in games. You know what I mean? I can never bring myself to be the bad guy. And in this fucking game, like you know how if you accidentally make the wrong choice, you cut your shit off real quick, whatever. Ah, man, you can't do that shit in
Reminds me
this
when I
game.
play like a
I got like,
civilization. I'm sitting there going, this time I'm gonna be the communist dictator, an asshole, and like does everything to fuck everyone over, and then I get like 5 turns in, and I'm all right. Egalitarian, republic. It's like, god damn it.
it's hard to be bad in
Right.
this game because you get a personal attachment to like the characters and stuff. Like there's like this part where, I mean, this is not spoiler because it's literally in like the first 20 minutes of the game where you're playing as the character and you have the option to fight her dad, and I think you can kill her dad in front of the little girl if you want to. And I just can't bring myself to do it. I can't fight him in front of the little girl, man. I can't do it. But anyway, I've been playing that. You know, I've been on my Call of Duty, bodying motherfuckers. Yeah, I mean, play some of that Warzone. Try to get Will to play it with me, but he wouldn't download it because it was 100 gigs.
Tell him to man up. It honestly, I think it's better than PUBG in every way.
What?
I'm
Warzone?
saying it's official on consoles at least. There's no reason to
Oh
play
yeah,
PUBG anymore. The jankiness of PUBG
man. PUBG's got us
has
supposed to play
gotten
some
to the
hard.
point.
It made me a
No, but
PC gamer again.
the jankiness, sir, the jankiness is so bad it's still on console that when you play the new Call of Duty, it's a different experience.
Wait, did you not have the game already before
I
this?
I own it, so I was able to just download the 20 gigabyte patch.
Oh, okay, you did. Oh, we gotta play it. I haven't played it with a friend yet. Did you die and then get to come back? Did you do the 1v1?
Yeah,
Shit,
yeah, that
that was
stuff's cool.
awesome. That's such a cool idea. I
But
loved it.
like, just the mechanics work way better. The system, the game runs way better than PUBG by a long shot. It has more players. It's still the same kind of setup where you're getting armor and pieces to protect yourself. While
Yeah.
it's just I'm sorry, Pub. You had years to fix yourself.
They should
You,
come out with a PUBG too, man.
yeah,
On a
you,
better engine.
I'm just saying you didn't. Call of Duty. You
Sh-
gave. It was your game to lose, and you lost. Like,
They lost it. They lost it to Fortnite, so
yeah.
it's okay. It's been
Or actually, if you look
it's
at
fine.
mobile and console, it's about even between Fortnite and Pub.
Yeah.
Fortnite didn't really take off, not in the mobile space like Pub did. So they're about even when it comes to the amount of players that play both.
I've stopped counting.
Yeah.
I've stopped counting, Dustin. But also I played some Celeste. Still trying to knock that game off, but I haven't yet. But I mean, that's pretty much. I rocked out on some Halo 5. I just went back to that just to see if I could still play it. Man, that game's hard to go back to, man. Not that because it's a bad game or anything, but it's just so skill based. Like gotta be perfect to play that fucking game, man. Because everybody knows every little trick, and it's just gotta be good
You're
at it.
playing against
It's
the
not like
people
playing
that have
Call.
been consistently
Yeah,
playing.
like if you play against somebody who never stopped playing that game, then it's hard to go back and play it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. My dad still plays it every day, every single day. He's a level.
Halo 5,
Yeah, he's level 150.
Jesus.
I guess
It's
the
a fucking
maximum's
great game though.
152.
I love
So
Halo.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready for Halo Infinite though. So
He tried to play Warzone and it wasn't happening because the only shooter he like back in the day he used to play Halo or Doom on like the Super NES. He would play Doom, Contra and all that. But then as soon as Halo came out, that's all he played, and so he would just get the newest Halo game. And yeah, he's stuck on Halo 5 until Infinite comes out, and he definitely downloaded it and tried it and played a match of Warzone, and he's like, no, there's too much going on. He's 65 years old, so I said, all right, fine.
All right, well,
Hey, I'm excited. Like, I'm really thinking Infinite's going to be now with all the SSD stuff and all that they're pushing out. Like,
yeah, PUBG might actually run
really
well
excited
on
for
the
that.
next gen.
PUBG might actually run a little well. Probably
Yeah.
not on PlayStation. Probably won't even run on PS5. I'm sorry.
All right, well, I appreciate everybody for listening to our podcast this week. We appreciate everybody that tuned into our 300th episode. We will be back next week on Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Hopefully we'll have Will next week. But until then, y'all take it easy, stay safe, and stay healthy.
As he coughs.
Yep. All right.
And he's dead. Okay.
And it's gone.
Peace.
See you guys.
Miku.
All right, let's go.